Marcus Thompson woke up on Tuesday morning feeling like the world was already against him. The alarm clock screamed at him from the nightstand showing 7 in the morning. His head was pounding from staying up too late drinking cheap beer and watching old movies. He rolled out of his single bed in the tiny apartment that smelled like old pizza and regret. The bathroom mirror showed him a face he barely recognized anymore. Dark circles under brown eyes that used to sparkle with hope. A beard that needed trimming growing wild on his chin. At 28 years old, Marcus looked like he had lived through 40 years of disappointment. He splashed cold water on his face, trying to wake up his brain for another day of pretending everything was fine. His phone buzzed with a text message that would change everything. It was from Sarah, his girlfriend of 2 years. The message was short and brutal, like a punch to the stomach. She was leaving him. She could not handle his anger anymore. She was tired of his drinking and his constant complaints about life. She would pick up her things while he was at work. Do not call her. Do not text her. It was over. Marcus stared at the phone screen, reading the words again and again, hoping they would change. But they stayed the same, destroying his heart with each reading. Sarah was the only good thing left in his life. She made him laugh when everything else made him want to scream. She believed in him when he had stopped believing in himself. Now she was gone, like everything else good that had ever happened to him. He threw the phone across the room, watching it hit the wall and crash to the floor. The screen cracked, making spider web patterns that matched how his heart felt. Broken and shattered beyond repair. He sat on the edge of his bed, holding his head in his hands, wondering how everything had gone so wrong so fast. Work was calling him to another day of carrying heavy materials and following orders from bosses who treated him like he was stupid. Marcus had been working construction for 3 years since dropping out of college. The job paid enough to keep him alive, but not enough to make him happy. Every day was the same routine of lifting and digging and sweating under the hot sun, while richer men in air-conditioned offices decided his fate. The construction site was 30 minutes away by bus. Marcus grabbed his hard hat and work boots, putting them on like armor for another battle he did not want to fight. The bus was crowded with other tired workers heading to jobs they hated. Everyone looked at their phones, avoiding eye contact and pretending they were somewhere else. When Marcus arrived at the site, his supervisor, Tony, was waiting with a face like thunder. Tony was a short, fat man who loved having power over other people. He enjoyed making workers feel small and worthless. Today he seemed especially happy to deliver bad news. "Your work has been sloppy lately," Tony said with a mean smile. "You show up late, you leave early, and yesterday you messed up the measurements on the Johnson project. We cannot afford mistakes like that. You are fired, Marcus. Clean out your locker and get off my site." Marcus felt the words hit him like a hammer blow. He wanted to argue, to explain that everyone makes mistakes. But Tony had already turned away, dismissing him like garbage. Other workers watched with sympathy, but no one spoke up. Everyone was too afraid of losing their own jobs. The walk to his locker felt like walking to his own funeral. 3 years of his life packed into a small metal box. A few photos of Sarah that now felt like knives in his chest. Some tools he had bought with his first paycheck, hoping to build something good with his hands. Now it all seemed meaningless. The security guard escorted him off the property like he was a criminal. Marcus stood on the sidewalk holding a small cardboard box containing his life, wondering what to do next. No job, no girlfriend, no hope. The sun was shining bright, like it was mocking his darkness. Marcus walked the streets for hours, carrying his small box of belongings like a shield against the world. His feet hurt in his work boots, but he kept walking because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant feeling the full weight of his failures. The city around him buzzed with life that he no longer felt part of. People rushed past him, talking on phones, going to jobs they still had, meeting people who still loved them. By afternoon, the sun was beating down hard, making his work shirt stick to his back with sweat. Marcus found himself in a part of town he rarely visited. Beverly Hills stretched out before him like a different planet. The houses were enormous, with perfect green lawns and shiny cars parked in circular driveways. Palm trees swayed in the breeze like they were showing off for the rich people who lived here. Every house seemed to mock him with its perfection. Swimming pools sparkled blue in backyards big enough to hold his entire apartment building. Security cameras watched from every corner, making sure people like him stayed where they belonged. The contrast between this world and his own life made the anger in his chest burn hotter. Marcus stopped walking when he saw a mansion that took his breath away. It was white with tall columns like something from a movie. The iron gates were decorated with gold details that probably cost more than Marcus made in a year. Through the bars he could see a fountain in the front yard with water dancing in the sunlight. This was the kind of place where problems got solved with money, where pain could be bought away. As he stood there staring, a small golden retriever came running toward the fence. The dog was beautiful, with fur that shined like silk and eyes full of innocent joy. It wagged its tail frantically and barked in a friendly way, like it wanted to play with Marcus through the bars. The dog jumped up, putting its front paws on the fence, trying to get closer to this new person. Something about the dog's happiness made Marcus feel worse. Even this rich person's pet had a better life than him. The dog lived in a mansion, ate expensive food, and probably had its own bedroom. Meanwhile, Marcus could not even keep a job or a girlfriend. The unfairness of it all crashed down on him like a wave. The anger that had been building all day finally found a target. Without thinking, Marcus lifted his foot and kicked hard at the fence near where the dog was standing. The metal bars rang out with a loud clang that echoed through the quiet street. The little dog yelped in fear and surprise, jumping back from the fence with its tail between its legs. Marcus immediately felt a sick feeling in his stomach, but the damage was done. The dog was limping slightly as it ran back toward the house, whimpering with confusion and hurt. It kept looking back at Marcus like it could not understand why someone would be mean to it for no reason. The dog had only wanted to be friendly, and Marcus had answered with violence. What Marcus did not know was that someone had been watching from inside the mansion. In the garage behind the house, a man in a black shirt had been working on a classic red Ferrari when he heard his dog's cry of pain. Jason Statham dropped the wrench he was holding and moved quickly toward the window. Jason saw everything: the kick, the dog's frightened retreat, the stranger walking away like nothing had happened. His jaw tightened with anger, but Jason Statham was not just an action movie star. He was also a smart man who thought before he acted. Instead of rushing outside to confront Marcus, he made a different choice. Jason walked calmly to where his keys hung by the door and picked up the ones for his black Range Rover. He would follow this cruel stranger and find out who he was and why he thought it was okay to hurt innocent animals. Marcus continued walking down the expensive street, carrying his box of belongings. His heart was still beating fast from what he had just done to the dog. Part of him felt bad about hurting an innocent animal, but another part of him felt satisfied that he had finally done something to fight back against a world that kept knocking him down. The rich people in their perfect houses would never understand what it felt like to lose everything in one day. Behind him, Jason Statham quietly started his Range Rover and began following at a safe distance. The vehicle was dark and powerful, moving through the streets like a predator stalking its prey. Jason kept his eyes fixed on Marcus, watching every step the angry man took. His own anger was controlled and cold, like ice waiting to strike at the right moment. Marcus turned corner after corner, moving away from the mansion district and into a more normal part of town. He passed coffee shops and small stores where regular people lived their regular lives. The box in his arms was getting heavier, but he did not want to go back to his empty apartment, where everything would remind him of Sarah and his failures. Walking felt better than sitting still with his thoughts. After an hour of wandering, Marcus found himself at Sunset Park, a small green space with benches and old trees. Families were having picnics on the grass, and children were playing on swings while their parents watched with love in their eyes. The scene made Marcus feel even more alone. Everyone else seemed to have people who cared about them, while he had nobody. Jason parked his Range Rover across the street from the park and watched through his tinted windows. He saw Marcus sit down heavily on a bench near the playground, looking defeated and exhausted. For a moment, Jason felt a flicker of sympathy for this stranger who seemed to be carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. But then he remembered his dog Buster limping and whimpering, and the sympathy disappeared. Marcus placed his cardboard box beside him on the bench and pulled out his wallet. Inside were 5 crumpled dollar bills, his last money until he could figure out what to do next. His stomach was growling with hunger, and he realized he had not eaten anything since a piece of toast early that morning. Life had moved too fast for him to think about basic things like food. A food truck was parked near the park entrance selling burgers and sandwiches to the families enjoying their day. Marcus walked over and spent 3 of his $5 on a small turkey sandwich wrapped in paper. The vendor was a friendly older man who smiled and asked how his day was going. Marcus just grunted and walked away, not wanting to explain that his day had been a complete disaster. Back on the bench, Marcus unwrapped his sandwich and took a bite. It tasted like cardboard, but he forced himself to eat because his body needed fuel. Around him, children laughed and played games that reminded him of when he was young and thought anything was possible. Those dreams felt like they belonged to someone else now. When he finished eating, Marcus crumpled up the wrapper and threw it on the ground beside the bench. Then he kicked an empty soda can that was lying nearby, sending it clattering across the concrete path. A mother pushing a stroller gave him a dirty look and pulled her baby closer as she passed. Marcus did not care anymore about what people thought of him. From his car, Jason continued to study this mysterious man who had hurt his beloved pet. He watched Marcus litter and kick the can, noting the anger and carelessness in every movement. This was someone who had given up on following rules or caring about consequences. Jason knew he had to approach this situation carefully because desperate people could be unpredictable and dangerous. Jason Statham took a deep breath and made his decision. He had watched Marcus for long enough to see that this was a man in pain, not just a cruel person who enjoyed hurting animals. Still, what Marcus had done to Buster could not be ignored. Jason turned off his car engine and stepped out onto the sidewalk. He was wearing simple clothes, a black t-shirt, and dark jeans that made him look like any regular person walking through the park. As Jason walked across the grass toward the bench where Marcus was sitting, he moved with the quiet confidence that came from years of martial arts training and movie stunt work. His steps were measured and calm, even though anger still burned in his chest. He had learned long ago that losing control never solved problems, it only made them worse. Marcus was staring at the ground, lost in his own dark thoughts, when a shadow fell across his feet. He looked up to see a man standing in front of him. The stranger was average height, but there was something about the way he carried himself that seemed dangerous. His face was serious but not unfriendly, and when he spoke his voice had a slight British accent that sounded familiar. "Excuse me," Jason said in a polite tone. "Can I sit here?" Marcus shrugged and moved his cardboard box to make room on the bench. He did not really want company, but he was too tired to argue. The man sat down, leaving some space between them, but close enough that Marcus could smell his expensive cologne. This was definitely someone with money, which automatically made Marcus suspicious. "Nice day," Jason said, looking around at the families playing in the park. "Though you look like you are having a tough time." Marcus snorted and shook his head. "You could say that," he replied without looking at the stranger. "Just lost my job and my girlfriend in the same day, so yeah, things are pretty terrible right now." Jason nodded sympathetically. "I am sorry to hear that," he said. "That sounds really difficult. Sometimes when we are hurt, we end up hurting others without meaning to." Something in the way Jason said those words made Marcus feel uncomfortable. He turned to look at the man more carefully, taking in his strong jaw and intense eyes. There was definitely something familiar about this face, but Marcus could not place where he might have seen it before. "What is that supposed to mean?" Marcus asked with suspicion creeping into his voice. "Are you some kind of therapist or something?" Jason smiled, but it was not a warm smile. "No, I am not a therapist," he said. "I am just someone who saw you kick my dog about an hour ago." The words hit Marcus like a punch to the stomach. His heart started racing, and he felt sweat break out on his forehead, despite the cool breeze in the park. He had been caught, and now he had to face the consequences of his anger. Marcus tried to stand up, but Jason put a gentle but firm hand on his shoulder, keeping him seated. "Look, man," Marcus said, his voice shaking slightly. "I do not know what you think you saw, but I have not done anything to any dog today. Maybe you have me confused with someone else." Jason studied Marcus' face carefully, noting the fear and guilt written clearly in his eyes. The truth was obvious, even though Marcus was trying to deny it. Still, Jason remained calm and spoke in the same polite tone as before. "I saw you quite clearly," he said. "You were standing outside the White House with the iron gates. There was a golden retriever on the other side of the fence. The dog was just being friendly, trying to say hello to you, and you kicked the fence hard enough to scare him and make him limp." Marcus felt trapped like an animal in a cage. This stranger had seen everything, and there was no point in lying anymore. But he was also confused about why the man was being so calm about it. If someone had hurt his pet, Marcus would have been shouting and maybe throwing punches by now. Marcus felt his hands start to shake as he realized he had been caught red-handed. The man sitting next to him had seen everything, and there was no escape from the truth. He looked around the park, desperately wondering if he could just run away, but something about this stranger made him feel like running would be pointless. The man had followed him this far, so he would probably follow him anywhere else too. "Okay, fine," Marcus said finally, his voice cracking with stress. "Maybe I did kick your fence, but it was not like I meant to hurt your dog. I was just angry and I was not thinking straight. It has been the worst day of my life, and I just snapped." Jason watched Marcus carefully, noting how the younger man was falling apart under pressure. In his movies, Jason played tough guys who never showed weakness, but in real life he understood that everyone had breaking points. Still, the fact remained that his innocent dog had been hurt by this stranger's anger. "So you admit you did it," Jason said calmly. "That is a start. Now I want to know why you thought it was okay to take your bad day out on an animal that never did anything to you." Marcus put his head in his hands, feeling ashamed and scared at the same time. This morning he had woken up as someone with a job and a girlfriend, and now he was sitting in a park being confronted by an angry dog owner who might call the police on him. Everything was spinning out of control so fast that he could barely keep up. "I do not know," Marcus said honestly. "I saw your perfect house and your happy dog, and I just got so mad. My whole life is falling apart, and there you are with everything handed to you on a silver plate. It is not fair that some people get everything while others get nothing." Jason felt a flicker of understanding at those words. He had grown up poor himself, working hard for everything he had achieved. Success had not been handed to him on any plate, silver or otherwise. But he also knew that Marcus did not know anything about his background or struggles. "What is your name?" Jason asked in a gentler tone. "Marcus," the young man replied, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. "Marcus Thompson." "Well, Marcus, I am Jason," Jason said, extending his hand for a handshake. "And I think you have made some assumptions about me and my life that might not be true." Marcus shook the offered hand limply, still not understanding why this man was being so calm about everything. If their positions were reversed, Marcus would have been screaming and probably throwing punches by now. The stranger's self-control was almost scary in how complete it was. "Look, Jason," Marcus said, trying to sound tougher than he felt. "I am sorry about your dog, okay? But I do not have any money to pay for a vet or anything like that. I just lost my job, so I am completely broke. If you want to call the cops on me, then just do it and get it over with." Jason studied Marcus for a long moment, taking in his cheap clothes, his desperate expression, and the cardboard box of belongings sitting beside him on the bench. This was clearly someone who had hit rock bottom and was lashing out at the world because he did not know what else to do. "I am not going to call the police," Jason said finally, "but we are going to have a conversation about what you did and why you did it. And you are going to listen to what I have to say because you owe me that much at least." Marcus nodded reluctantly, knowing he had no choice in the matter. He was trapped and at the mercy of this strange, calm man who seemed to see right through all his defenses and excuses. Jason leaned back on the bench and studied Marcus with eyes that seemed to see everything. The afternoon sun was getting lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the park. Families were starting to pack up their picnics and head home to comfortable houses where dinner was waiting and problems could be solved with love and patience. "Tell me about your day," Jason said in a voice that was neither angry nor sympathetic, just interested. "What happened that made you so angry that you would hurt an innocent animal?" Marcus hesitated, wondering if this was some kind of trap. Maybe Jason was recording their conversation to use against him later. But something about the man's calm presence made Marcus want to talk. He had been holding everything inside all day, and the pressure was becoming unbearable. "My girlfriend broke up with me this morning," Marcus began, his voice shaky. "Sarah sent me a text while I was getting ready for work. 2 years together, and she could not even tell me to my face. She said she was tired of my anger and my drinking and my complaining about everything." Jason nodded, encouraging Marcus to continue without saying anything judgmental. He had learned that sometimes people needed to tell their story before they could hear wisdom or advice. "Then I got to work, and my boss fired me," Marcus continued, the words tumbling out faster now. "Said my work was sloppy, and I was always late, which is not even true. I have been doing construction for 3 years, and I am good at what I do. But Tony, my supervisor, has always hated me for some reason. He was smiling when he told me to get out." The pain in Marcus' voice was real, and Jason could hear it clearly. He had known plenty of men who worked hard jobs for bosses who did not respect them. The frustration and powerlessness could eat away at a person's soul if they let it. "So you lost your girlfriend and your job in the same day," Jason said. "That would be hard for anyone to handle. But that still does not explain why you took it out on my dog." Marcus looked down at his hands, feeling the shame wash over him again. "I do not know," he admitted. "I was walking through your neighborhood, and I saw all those perfect houses with their perfect lawns and expensive cars. Everyone there has so much money, and I have nothing. When I saw your dog looking so happy and well cared for, something inside me just snapped." Jason was quiet for a moment, processing what Marcus had told him. He understood now that Marcus had seen him as a symbol of everything he could not have. The wealthy, successful person with the perfect life, while Marcus had lost everything that mattered to him. "Marcus," Jason said finally, "I want to tell you something about myself. But first I need you to understand that what you did to my dog was wrong, no matter what kind of day you were having. Buster is just an animal who trusts humans to be kind to him. When you hurt him, you broke that trust." "I know," Marcus whispered. "I felt terrible the moment I did it. I have never hurt an animal before in my life. I do not know what came over me." Jason studied Marcus' face, looking for signs of genuine remorse versus just fear of getting in trouble. What he saw convinced him that this young man was truly sorry for what he had done and was struggling with demons much bigger than anger at a dog. "The truth is, Marcus," Jason said, "I am not just some rich guy who was born with everything handed to him. I am Jason Statham, the actor. You might know me from action movies." Marcus' eyes went wide with shock, and suddenly the familiar face made sense. He had seen this man on movie screens dozens of times, playing tough guys who fought bad guys and saved the day. Now that same man was sitting on a park bench, talking to him about life and choices. Marcus felt his mouth drop open as the realization hit him like a lightning bolt. He was sitting next to Jason Statham, the famous action movie star, the man whose films he had watched countless times while drinking beer in his apartment, trying to escape from his boring life. Now that same man was here in real life, talking to him about kicking his dog. "Oh my God," Marcus stammered, feeling his face turn red with embarrassment. "You are actually Jason Statham. I cannot believe this. I kicked Jason Statham's dog. I am so dead." Jason could not help but smile slightly at Marcus' reaction. He was used to people being starstruck when they recognized him, but this situation was definitely unique. Usually fans wanted autographs or selfies, not forgiveness for hurting his pet. "Yes, I am Jason Statham," Jason confirmed. "But right now I am just a man whose dog got hurt by someone who was having a bad day. The fact that I am famous does not change what happened or make it better or worse." Marcus felt panic rising in his chest. This was so much worse than he had imagined. If Jason wanted to, he could destroy Marcus' life completely. One phone call to the right people and Marcus would be in the news as the crazy guy who attacked a movie star's dog. His life was already ruined, but this could make it 1,000,000 times worse. "Please do not have me arrested," Marcus begged. "I know what I did was wrong, and I am sorry. I will do anything to make it up to you and your dog. I just cannot go to jail right now. I have nothing left, and if I get a criminal record, I will never be able to get another job." Jason watched Marcus carefully, noting the real fear in his eyes. This was not someone trying to manipulate the situation for sympathy. This was a desperate man who had made a terrible mistake and was now terrified of the consequences. Marcus calmed down. Jason said firmly, "I already told you I am not calling the police, but I want you to understand something. I could ruin your life if I wanted to. One post on social media with your face, and what you did would follow you forever. The internet never forgets." The words sent a chill down Marcus' spine. He had seen what happened to people who became the target of online anger. Their lives were destroyed within hours as millions of strangers decided they deserved punishment. The thought of becoming one of those people made him feel sick. "But I am not going to do that," Jason continued. "Do you know why?" Marcus shook his head, unable to speak. Everything was happening so fast that he could barely keep up with his own thoughts. This morning he had been Marcus Thompson, the construction worker with a girlfriend and a job. Now he was Marcus Thompson, the man who kicked Jason Statham's dog, and somehow had not been destroyed for it. "Because I grew up poor too," Jason said, his voice becoming softer. "I know what it feels like to have nothing and to be angry at the world. I worked my way up from the bottom, doing whatever jobs I could find to survive. I was not born rich, Marcus. Everything I have I earned through hard work and persistence." Marcus looked at Jason with new eyes, seeing past the expensive clothes and confident manner to the man underneath. It was hard to imagine this successful movie star struggling with money or feeling powerless, but Jason had no reason to lie about his past. "The difference between us," Jason continued, "is that I learned to channel my anger into something productive. I used it to motivate myself to work harder and never give up. You let your anger control you, and it made you hurt something innocent." Marcus felt tears forming in his eyes as he realized how badly he had messed up. Not just today, but maybe for years. He had been letting his anger and resentment eat away at him until it poisoned everything he touched, including his relationship with Sarah. Jason watched as Marcus struggled with the weight of his revelations. The young man was clearly overwhelmed by learning who Jason was and what that could mean for his future. But Jason had made a decision sitting on this park bench that would surprise everyone, including himself. "Marcus, I am going to make you an offer," Jason said, leaning forward slightly. "But before I do, I need to know that you are serious about changing your life. Are you tired of being angry all the time? Are you ready to do the work to become a better person?" Marcus wiped his eyes with his sleeve and nodded frantically. "Yes," he said. "I am so tired of being angry. It has ruined everything good in my life, including Sarah. She was right to leave me because I was becoming someone I did not even recognize. I just do not know how to change." Jason smiled for the first time since sitting down, and it transformed his entire face from serious to almost fatherly. "That is the first step, Marcus," he said, "admitting you have a problem and wanting to fix it. Most people never get that far." "What kind of offer?" Marcus asked suspiciously. He had learned not to trust when things seemed too good to be true, because they usually were. Rich people did not just help poor people out of kindness. There was always a catch. "I owned several businesses beyond my acting career," Jason explained. "One of them is a security training company where we teach self-defense, martial arts, and personal protection. We also provide bodyguards for celebrities and wealthy clients. It is hard work, but it pays well, and it teaches discipline." Marcus felt his heart start beating faster with something that might have been hope. "Are you offering me a job?" he asked, not daring to believe it could be true. "I am offering you a chance," Jason corrected. "A chance to prove that you can change and become someone better than who you were today. The job would be conditional on several things. First, you would have to come with me right now to my house and apologize to Buster properly." Second, you would need to enter an anger management program and stick with it. Third, you would start training with my company, learning discipline and self-control along with physical skills. The offer was more than Marcus had ever imagined possible. A few hours ago, he had been unemployed and hopeless. Now, Jason Statham himself was offering him not just a job, but a complete life change. It seemed too good to be real. "Why would you do this for me?" Marcus asked. "I hurt your dog. I am nobody special. I do not understand why you would help me." Jason was quiet for a moment, looking out across the park, where the last families were gathering their things to go home. When he spoke, his voice was thoughtful and honest. "Because someone helped me once when I needed it most," Jason said. "I was young and angry and making bad choices. A mentor saw something in me that I could not see myself and gave me a chance to prove I could be better. That changed my whole life." Marcus felt something he had not experienced in a long time, gratitude mixed with genuine hope. This man had every reason to hate him and punish him, but instead he was offering mercy and opportunity. "But understand this, Marcus," Jason continued, his tone becoming serious again. "This is not charity. If you take this offer, you will work harder than you have ever worked in your life. You will be pushed to your limits physically and mentally. You will have to face your demons and fight them every single day. If you fail, if you give up, or if you hurt anyone else, the offer disappears forever." Marcus looked down at his cardboard box containing all his worldly possessions. Everything he had built in 28 years fit into one small container. The choice before him was simple: stay on the path he was on and likely end up homeless and alone, or take a chance on something completely different. 6 months later, Marcus Thompson stood in Jason Statham's backyard, watching Buster play with 3 other rescue dogs that Jason had adopted since their first meeting. The golden retriever showed no fear of Marcus anymore, and often came running up to him looking for treats and belly rubs. It was hard to believe that he had once kicked at this sweet, gentle animal out of anger and frustration. Marcus himself looked completely different from the broken man who had sat on that park bench. His body was lean and strong from months of martial arts training and physical conditioning. His eyes were clear and focused, no longer clouded by constant anger and resentment. He wore the black uniform of Jason's security company with pride, knowing he had earned the right to represent the business. The training had been exactly as difficult as Jason had promised. Marcus had been pushed to his physical and mental limits every single day. He learned not just how to fight, but more importantly, how to control his emotions under pressure. The anger management classes had been painful, forcing him to confront the deep hurt and disappointment that had been driving his rage for years. There had been moments when Marcus wanted to quit, when the work seemed too hard and the changes too difficult. But Jason had been there every step of the way, not as a boss, but as a mentor and friend. He shared stories from his own struggles and reminded Marcus that growth always came with pain. Marcus had also learned the truth about Jason's success. It was not just luck or talent that had made him famous. Jason woke up at 5 in the morning every day to train and practice. He studied scripts late into the night and never took his opportunities for granted. Success had come through discipline and hard work, not through shortcuts or handouts. The other employees at the security company had accepted Marcus slowly at first. They knew about his background and how he had come to work there. But as Marcus proved himself to be reliable and dedicated, they began to treat him as an equal. For the first time in years, Marcus felt like he belonged somewhere. Jason walked out of the house carrying 2 cups of coffee and handed one to Marcus. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the dogs chase each other around the perfectly manicured lawn. The same lawn that Marcus had once resented for representing everything he could not have. "How are you feeling about the promotion?" Jason asked. Next week, Marcus would start leading training sessions for new recruits, teaching them the same discipline and self-control that had transformed his own life. Nervous, Marcus admitted, "I never thought I would be teaching other people anything important. 6 months ago, I was the one who needed teaching." Jason smiled and clapped Marcus on the shoulder. "That is exactly why you will be good at it," he said. "You understand what it feels like to be at rock bottom. You can help others who are struggling the same way someone helped you. Marcus nodded, thinking about the recruits he would be training. Some of them would be young men like he had been, angry at the world and looking for someone to blame for their problems. He hoped he could show them what he had learned, that strength came not from hurting others, but from controlling yourself. Sarah had called him 2 weeks ago after hearing from mutual friends about his new job and changed lifestyle. She was proud of him, she said, and happy that he had found his way. They had talked for an hour, catching up on everything that had happened. There was no talk of getting back together. They had both moved on, but the conversation ended with genuine warmth and friendship. "Do you ever regret it?" Marcus asked Jason suddenly. "Helping me instead of just calling the police that day?" Jason looked at him seriously, considering the question carefully. "Never," he said finally. "You needed help, not punishment, and look what came from taking that chance. You have become one of my best employees and one of my closest friends." Marcus felt his throat tighten with emotion. That day in the park had been the worst day of his life, but it had also been the day everything began to change for the better. Sometimes the worst moments led to the most important transformations if you were brave enough to accept help and work to deserve it.